Hello and welcome to another solo show of Creating the Curve. So, this is my every other week solo show, just a little bit shorter one, reflecting on the week before. Last week, we had the wonderful Frank Prendergast on, and we were talking about AI, particularly around processes and how it can make a small business's life better. Now, I mean, maybe because I'm an ex-programmer, but I have embraced AI in huge proportions. I absolutely love it. And I don't use it for everything, but I do use it a lot for shortening my times of creating things, for research, even for making its way through lots of bits of data. For example, I'll often put a spreadsheet in and get AI to reorder it, to rejig it for me, to pull the data out and give me some insights. I find it really useful for stuff that I find manual or long-winded. It can be really difficult. So I'm a small business owner myself. So I use it to save myself time because we only have so many hours in the day. And here's the thing about AI, it would be lovely to have a huge team of people that were experts in all the different areas that you need, accountant, a salesperson, etc. It would be wonderful to have that. And you had each person looking after their own area. You wouldn't have to think about it. But in reality, for many businesses, I'm sure many of you listening to this, that isn't possible, whether you're just too new, too small, not at the right place yet, or you just don't want to manage a team. I know a couple of people that said, I'll be a terrible manager. I don't want to manage people. So I want to stay on my own. Or people that have managed people in the past and absolutely hated it. It's different for every business. And so for example, for myself, I've got a small business. I have a VA and I do have an accountant. So I have sort of two areas that I get help with. But I don't have a huge team. And for me, even things that I enjoy doing that take time, I've started fiddling around with AI. And I'll give you an example of one of the big processes I do with AI. I am a marketer at heart and I love marketing, but I don't always have the time or headspace to do it. So there's this really good thing called creating pillar content, which is a big piece of content that you create. It could be once a month, every week, depending on how often you want to create it. And this pillar piece of content is this sort of main thing of content that you've done. It could be a podcast like I'm doing now, or it could be a white paper, it could be a big blog, it could be an ebook, it could be a YouTube video. And the idea is that you take this piece of content and then you use that for all of your other marketing by chopping it down, converting it into different formats. So, for example, take one of my podcasts. So take the one from last week. We had Frank Prendergast on, and I think we spoke for about an hour on AI. Loads of really interesting subjects in there. Now, as a whole, it was a wonderful discussion, but actually, there's loads of individual points and useful bits out of it. So, what you can do with pillar content is you can chop it into lots of bits. So you could chop it into, I could probably get at least 15 sort of 1 to 2 minute videos out of that big long conversation that I could share on social media, put on YouTube shorts. And then what else I could do is I could also there's quite a few topics in there that I could actually expand into blog posts. And then what I could also do is write some sort of text-based LinkedIn posts. I'm a big LinkedIn user. I could write some text-based LinkedIn posts, or I could do some sort of carousels, or even maybe like a little one pager from it. Now, the problem is with that is that a lot of that takes time. You have to write the blogs, you have to snip out the content, you have to trim create all of these sort of bits of content, but you could end up with about 40 pieces of content from one thing. So the one thing that I've been doing, and I've been sort of refining this process over, the last few months. And I'm hoping that what we were talking about in Frank's session about creating GPTs, custom GPTs, where you can put some information in and something outputs in. I'm hoping some of these processes I can start doing that, and all my members of my community can benefit from them. So I'll share the GPTs with them. So what I do is you start with this big piece of content. So for me, it's a video, because even though it's a podcast, I also record it on a video, because you sort of doing two things in one go. I'm getting the audio and I'm also getting the video side of it. So firstly, I put it up as a podcast. Secondly, I can just put a frame around it and pop it on my YouTube. So that's two pieces of content in one go. And then going back to AI, there are some wonderful tools these days to help you trim it up. So what I tend to do is I tend to use, there's Opus Clip, which is quite nice. That can trim the video using AI. It tries to find some good clips for you. It's not always perfect. I'm going to admit it's not always perfect, but it can pick it normally comes up with about 10, 12 clips for you. And although they're not all perfect, so that you can edit them to make them a little longer, a bit shorter, and it'll put the people in the right order, sort of sitting nicely on the screen. It'll do it in sort of portrait format. So I record in landscape. It will put it in portrait format for you. It'll put the captions at the bottom, because you should always have captions on your videos. It just makes it look absolutely brilliant. And it takes about a minute for it to sort of do that. So then, maybe another 15 minutes for you to tweak and refine. Another software that I absolutely love, and that's what I use to edit my podcast, is Descript. So Descript is a really good video editing tool. It reads your video, and using AI, it creates a script at the side. And with the script, it's a really easy way of editing your video. So instead of like chopping bits out and trying to go into the sort of video timeline, you just select the text that you want to delete or edit, and it edits it for you. And then you can chop captions on it, from which will use the text. You can export it to audio, video, but you can also export the transcript as well. I would say that with Descript, like all these programs, they're not 100% perfect. I find Descript struggles a little bit with British English. I think it's better, from my understanding, with American English, but it's not bad. And then, so what it will do is it will transcribe it. You edit the picture. Once again, similar to Opus Clip, it will also, there's an AI built in, and it will try and snatch some clips out for you. So quite a few clips, and it will put them in little separate ones where you can edit them and use them on different social media. But the great thing I like about Descript as well is you can select text of some bits that you like, and actually create new compositions from them. So you can manually create clips really easily as well. It also does things like it removes the ums and ahs for you. I don't tend to do a huge amount in my podcast because I quite like natural speech. I'll keep the ums, the ahs, the stuttering, because I feel, and when you chop it out, sometimes it doesn't sound too natural. But when I'm doing a social clip, I will chop the ums and ahs out, because you want it short and punchy. It does things like it will correct eyes looking away from the camera. It will point them back towards the camera. It's quite freaky how it does it. There's some other software that does sort of similar. It's really, really good. And so they sort of built, Descript is kind of a mix of manual and AI at the same time. But I find that editing stuff in Descript, it doesn't take me long at all. I'm going to be honest that I'm recording this on a Sunday evening at 10 to 7 in the evening, and I need to edit it tonight, create a social snippet, and get it up onto Libsyn, which I use, which is my distribution platform for distributing my podcast. So I will get it done within probably about half an hour after I finish recording, because this software is really good. And then what I do is I also download the transcript, and then that's where ChatGPT comes in. This is where my custom GTPs might come in, because what I do is I download the transcript, and then I pop it into ChatGPT. I remind it who my audience is. I remind it what we're doing. I sort of tell it a little bit about the podcast. So probably a couple of paragraphs of me waffling about that. And I'll put the transcript in and I'll ask it to pick out 3 blog posts from the transcript. So it'll pick out 3 blog post ideas on different topics that I've asked. And I don't tell it what topics, I just sort of try and get it to pick 3 topics. And then I'll get it to write draft blog posts for me. So it'll write 3 blog posts. I ask it to include quotes from the transcript, and it will write sort of 3 sort of decent blogs for me. Now, I'm an ex-copywriter and PR, so I do tweak and edit them. But I must admit, because I put a lot of content in, they don't sound that bad. They don't sound too bad at all. So if you're not that confident, you might just want to make a couple of tweaks and you could probably put them live. So put 1 live a week for 3 weeks, and there's 3 blog posts written for you. And then what I do as well is I do ask it to sort of pencil together some social posts that I could talk about based on the different topics in the talk as well. And it'll pencil together some ideas for it, just to give me a sort of starting point. Once again, they're actually reasonably good. My ChatGPT, I use the paid version, and it knows my tone and voice very well. So it's quite good at replicating me. It's not perfect, but people, I've sort of done a few tests and people have struggled to tell which is ChatGPT and which is me, which is a great thing. I feel like I've got it well trained. They said it sounds quite a bit like me because it uses a lot of biscuit jokes. So then I've sort of got some rough sort of post generated. I have done the image side as well, and sometimes it will come up with some good images to go with my social posts as well. The only downside is it doesn't do my brand very well, so my sort of styling and brand. And even though I sort of put it in, it gets it a little bit wonky. But it's probably only I that notice that. So I don't always use the sort of images it creates so far, but it is getting better. And every time I do it, the AI generated images are looking a bit closer to something interesting. Most of the time, I tend to use videos of the podcast or of my face, because they seem to do really well, much to my disgust of having to put photographs of my face everywhere. But they do really well because people recognise it stops the scroll because they recognise me in the feed. I've got lots of friends in my network, and so they recognise it and stop and read, which is the point of it. So altogether, this sort of process I'm creating, it's not 100% AI, but it's heavy. AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this marketing process. I create 1 piece of content a week, which is quite a lot, but then I am an ex-marketer. You might want to do 1 a month. And the really interesting thing about creating content this way is you could actually talk at a video for an hour, but not actually use the video in social media. If you're not keen on video and not interested in having your face and video on social media, and some people aren't, and it's absolutely acceptable, you could talk at the screen for an hour, or you and a colleague could talk at the screen because sometimes it's more comfortable to have a conversation, and you could talk about a topic for the month or a problem or an issue, and you could talk at it. But then you could use the same process. So instead of chopping the video up, you could, if you did want to use it, you could use some audio snippets, or you could just not have any voice or video, and you could create the blog post still. You could use it to create blog posts. You could use this content, feed the transcript into ChatGPT and create the blog post, create some LinkedIn posts. If you're writing and doing blogs, not just on your own site, you could use LinkedIn articles. You could use medium.com or Substack to create articles, because a lot of people do written content. I used to work a long time ago. I had a client that was into sort of integrations and AWS, and they didn't do much video audio, but they had a blog which was the go-to blog for everything sort of integrations, AWS, all those subjects. It was the go-to blog, and it was a really honest, not overly polished blog. And that's where people went to find out about different new technologies, new techniques. So writing is still very, very valid as a form of communication, but the initial video is so that you can get the ideas out your head, because some people struggle to sit down for hours and write a paper, write a white paper, write an ebook, write a blog. But actually, if you can talk at a screen, and particularly if you've got a colleague who can just talk at a screen, transcribe it, and then use that content for other stuff, it can be really useful. Because the thing about AI, Frank and I sort of touched on this quite a bit last time, is that the more input you give it, the more it sounds like you, the more correct it'll be. Because the way AI works is it's a law of averages. When it creates a piece of text, it's like, what is the most popular word that would have gone next, and what is the most popular word that would have gone after that, and what was the next one after that. So if you had like the word fish, and for British, it's probably chips is the next word that's probably going to think is featured. So, it's one of those things where it's trying to predict the next word. So this is why sometimes things sound a bit same, because it's trying to determine the averages of what is the most popular word to put after this. So if you start training it with your language and your tone, I know Frank said last time, it started to pick up his tone. And I think it was something like, come and grab a bunch of, or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was starting to use that sort of more human tone that he would use. For me, it starts putting in biscuit jokes, even if I don't ask it to, because biscuits is my thing, and I talk a lot about biscuits. So it starts putting in a lot of biscuit jokes because it knows me and understands how I like to write. And because the paid ChatGPT has a good memory as part of it, it remembers different conversations within my project, so it understands what my business is, what text I've written about it before. So it starts to sort of have this picture. So when it's writing, it can take, for example, the transcript for my podcast, but it can also use some of the knowledge it knows about me to write blog posts and to write posts. So it gets really, really knowledgeable. And the reason I picked marketing is because this is the one thing, I work with a lot of technical founders, and marketing is definitely the one thing that I hear that is the absolute thorn in their side. They don't like marketing. They find it confusing. They don't have the time, because it can be really time consuming. So these processes of, using AI to help you. If you're not using video, I do recommend Otter AI for transcribing your video. So, for example, if you're doing this alternative that I've suggested, which is to just talk at a video, you and a colleague, talk at a video for an hour. You don't need things like Descript or Opus Clip. You could just use Otter AI, which is a really good transcription software. It's one of my favorites. So you don't need a huge amount of AI. Just Otter AI and ChatGPT or Descript or Opus Clip. If you want to do some video, and it might be that you are really good at writing, and you've written a big white paper, and you can do the same process with that, because big white paper, certain people will read it but others won't. I have ADHD, and I have the attention span of a gnat most of the time, unless I'm in uber hyper focus. So for me, reading a white paper, if I'm in the mood, I'll devour it. But if I'm not, I want that in 2-second chunks. I want a short bit of information given to me, maybe at regular periods. Interesting. There's some apps around that I've seen where you can read a book and it kind of summarizes books, like Cliff's Notes, for you, and pulls out the key concepts from it, which I'm thinking about signing up to, because if I'm in a mood that I want to sort of learn but I haven't got the attention span, those quick short summaries. And this is why things like short form video do really well, because not everyone has the time to sit down and go through something long. For me, I love audiobooks, and I will listen to long audiobooks, but I do it while I'm doing other things like walking or cooking or cleaning out the loft or something, because it keeps my attention span there when I'm doing two things at one time. But if I want to learn something and I want to go and have a look for it, actually the shorter the better. So by doing this, you're also catering for different learning styles as well of your audience. So, and the thing is, this is just one example that I've given of AI and how to use it. But I use it in so many different ways. Like I said, I mean, just from personal life, I was having migraines and I said, could you create me an Excel migraine diary? Created me a brilliant migraine diary, which I could put my symptoms in and what dates, etc., and took it to my doctor so she could work out what was going on, which was fabulous. You can ask it to do, and I think this is a problem we talked about with I talked about with Frank last time. You can ask it to do anything, and it is really good. There's other things like, for example, with my podcast. So as I mentioned, I'm recording this quite late on a Sunday evening. It's not normally this late, but I've been super sick this last week. I had migraines for about 2.5, 3 weeks. I was getting really tired, and doctors diagnosed me with quite a bad sinus infection. And I was super sick. So I was supposed to be recording this on Friday. But because I was so sick, I actually just fell asleep. And isn't this the thing about being a small business owner? You know, one thing happens, you get ill, your kids are sick, you have to take your cat to the vet, or just something happens, or you just want to, there's an event that you need to go to or want to go to, and it puts your whole week out. So having these sort of things to do the uplift. So what I do when I'm in a hurry, particularly, is that when I'm doing my podcast, I can then go back to Descript. I use Descript to edit my podcast. And so today, after this, I will get it to do a snippet for me because I haven't got time to spend going through it again to pick my own snippet out. And Descript will generate a few for me, and it will create the video and put the subtitles for me, which is brilliant. And then I just have to check the subtitles are right. And then what I'll do is I'll download the transcript from Descript. I'll put it into ChatGPT, where I've got a chat which I do that I've kept going for my podcasts, and I can put the transcript in, and then I ask it to generate the overview for me that I can put into Libsyn, so that it has an overview when it goes to Apple Podcasts, and it tells people what it's about. So it will put it in, it'll come up with some titles for me if I can't think of any. So if I'm really stuck, it'll come up with some titles. I would say ChatGPT is not very good with podcast titles, but it often gets me about 50% of the way there. And then I'm like, oh, yes, I like half of that, but I'm going to change it. I don't know what it is, but for some reason it's not very good at podcast titles. But this is the thing, even if it's not, it's got me most of the way there. So this is why I feel quite safe. It's 7 right now. I feel quite safe that I will have edited this and put it up by the end of the day. And and it's thinking about those things we were talking about with Frank last week. Thinking about for you personally. So these are my things. These are the things that I do regularly. What is it that you do regularly that you need help with? It could be research. There's a bit of a thing around ChatGPT about research, but there's other ones like Perplexity. Perplexity AI is a research tool, but also ChatGPT has its deep research tools now. And you can always ask things. When you're doing research, ask it for citations if it hasn't given you any. Where I ask it for a link to where it got the details from, and I can click on the link, and sometimes it's an expired website page and I cannot find the actual source of this link, so I'll just discount it. But sometimes it will come up and it will give you the link, and then it will tell you where it's found it. So then that way you can be sure that actually it exists and it wasn't hallucinating. Because there have been some wonderful, it was the lawyer that he used ChatGPT, and ChatGPT hallucinated a previous legal ruling, and instead of checking it, he used it in his submission to court to try and prove a fact. And when it came to the sort of court, they're like, this ruling doesn't exist. And I think he actually lost his job in the end, sadly. Well, I say sadly, well, it's sad, but you as a lawyer, you should absolutely check your facts. But as long as you're fact checking with it, it's quite good. Like I said, Perplexity is a good one, and a lot of people really rate that for AI. Some of the other good tools that I like, Notebook LM's really good. We had I work at Fairham Innovation Centre sometimes, and we had Google in the other day, and they were talking about the how good Notebook LM is for researching your own stuff. So say, for example, you've got loads of white papers, loads of information, loads of stuff. For example, I could put all of my podcasts in from this. I've also got a previous podcast, which is Crossing the Content Chasm. I could put all the transcripts and videos in from all of my podcasts. I've got a membership section which has loads of workbooks, loads of videos. It's got loads of sort of information booklets. I could put all of this into Notebook LM, and then I could generate blogs from it and information from it. So you don't have to, with ChatGPT, which goes to the world, the world of information that it's got. Things like Notebook LM, you could actually use your own information to generate. Because I bet most people in business have got stuff that they've written in the past, blogs, articles, just random little snippets of videos done. If you put all of those in one place and then you could start creating content from them, I bet that would be a huge time saver. Because actually, there's so much stuff, even for myself. I didn't make my first podcast, Crossing the Content Chasm. I didn't make the most of that as I could have. I put it up every week. Didn't really make many videos. Didn't even put it on YouTube. And I didn't make many blogs out of it. And there's some really amazing content in there. I've got conversations with Emma Butler from Lego Group, Simon Homan from Samsung. And they were really good conversations about creating content and managing helping teams sort of think outside the box. And actually, they're really relevant to my current audience of small STEM business founders. And so, part of what I might do is go back to the 38 episodes that I've done of that and sort of bring those forward. So think about all this stuff that you've got in the past. Could you do something with it? Could you chuck it all in and get AI to sort of search it and come out with something? Because that's what AI is there for, is to take a weight off some of this sort of manual slog that you need to do. So things like lead research. So, for example, when I'm doing a podcast, most of the time I really know the person. So I tend to stick to people I know because I know they're going to be a really good participant in my podcast. I know that they know their stuff. And so I generally pick people. And also because I know them, I'm more comfortable talking to them. But sometimes they're people that I don't know so well. And what I'll do is I'll do things like put their website, their LinkedIn profile, and get loads of information on them. And I will ask ChatGPT, what type of topics should we talk about? And it will give me some topics and questions to ask that I think that it thinks might be relevant. And then I'll sort of curate them and decide what I want to do. But you could do that for lead research as well. That when we're going back to John Tunstall's episode of personalizing and making sure that we're talking to people and understanding people, I mentioned in my episode afterwards that you should be thinking about the person you're talking to rather than the business. Now, it's really hard to go and it is quite time consuming to go and find all the people that you know are on your call list, and that so a little bit about them. So things, once again, ChatGPT, other AI software, Microsoft Copilot, although I don't hugely recommend Copilot. I do find it lagging a bit. Google Gemini, though, is very, very good. Giving them like their LinkedIn profile, their website, any information that you can find about them, and asking them for a bit of information on the lead. I think there's some of the business development software does it as well. I think like Apollo.io, sorry, which is a business development platform. I think they might, because that gives you have a list of prospects. I think that might give you some AI info on different prospects as well before you call them. I believe so. I think it's Apollo, but have a look if you're doing sales, because that is really useful. So think about all these different areas, and all the boring areas. Accountancy systems. I know Xero has some decent AI in it. Document drafting, although you should go to a lawyer for a lot of stuff, but if it's sort of getting the basics together, proposals, reports, contracts, you might get away with using things like AI for the basics of those as well. Often AI thinks about things that humans don't, so it's really hard. What about meeting notes and summaries? Things like that are brilliant. Otter AI. If you've got Teams, using the premium Teams, I think it is, that records. There's lots of different ones that will record notes. I think it's Gemini that records notes. So I think if you're using Google, but recording the notes of your meetings and getting it to summarize and create action points for you, that's a real big saver of time, and it's absolutely fantastic. So if you're having those, and it doesn't have to be that it's a Teams call or Google call, although that is the easiest way to do it. There are other ways, such as setting your phone up to record meetings, and as long as everyone's happy with you doing that, and AI processing it and recording it. It's a brilliant way. If you're busy founder and you're like, oh, what were the action points? I haven't written everything down. Things like this are real great time savers for just making your life easier. So think about all the processes that you do day to day that might take a little bit of time, and particularly the boring ones that you really don't like doing. Because if you're going to, outsource those to AI, don't outsource the things you enjoy doing. Outsource the stuff you hate doing, because that will make life a little bit easier, because you won't be doing all this boring stuff that you hate. So see what I often do is, when I'm sort of in the middle of a process going, I'm finding I'm switching off on this, I'll make a note and just say to myself, actually, I might need to just see if I can get a little bit of help with this process. And sometimes it's through my VA, because I need a human touch, and sometimes it's through AI. And I am such a huge user of AI, but like I said for Frank last week, I don't use custom GTPs. So watch this space, because hopefully soon I'll have some custom GTPs for all of these processes that I do, and I'll be sharing them with my community membership. So if you're not in part of the community, please feel free to come and join us. If you go to creatingthecurve.co.uk, you can join the community from there, and we've got a free community and then a paid membership area as well. So please do come over, and maybe we can come up with some ideas together of what AI you could use. So have fun exploring AI, and I hope this has given you a few ideas of where it might be used and how you might be able to use it, to just make your life a little bit easier. And I know marketing is a big pain, like I said, thorn in the side for many a business owner. So hopefully that might have given you an idea of how you might be able to use it to maybe lighten that load as well. So thank you for coming along with this episode, and I shall see you next week with another guest.